When you drop some dark occult conspiracy knowledge on a friend and their answer is, if that was true, it would be all over the news. Happens not so much anymore because it's becoming blatantly obvious. So let's see. If we look back at the last 40 years, let's see what lies we've been told. Well, in the 70s, it was the new ice age. Of course, that had to disappear rather quickly after we had the hottest summer on record, the summer of 76. In the 80s, it was acid rain. In the 90s, it was ozone depletion. The 2000s, global warming. Then they had to change it to climate change because global warming was such an obvious lie. That's 40 years of being completely wrong in the name of fear-mongering for power and money. All your government, they're corrupt to the core. Every single one. A single bee is ignored, but when millions come together, even the bravest run in fear. The one thing the government fears is the day we stand together. You must understand, the leading Bolsheviks who took over Russia were not Russians. They hated Russians. They hated Christians. Driven by ethnic hatred, they tortured and slaughtered millions of Russians without a shred of human remorse. It cannot be overstated, Bolshevism committed the greatest human slaughter of all time. The fact that most of the world is ignorant and uncaring about the enormous crime is proof that the global media is in the hands of the perpetrators. Alexander Slozenstein. New legal advice puts council fluoridation programmes on shaky grounds. Australia's water providers may not have the proper approval to add fluoride according to legal advice from a prominent lawyer. Tim Robertson, SC, who specialises in environmental and constitutional law, warns fluoridation is prohibited without approval from the Therapeutic Goods Administration. Supply of fluoridated water is in breach of the Therapeutic Goods Act. Until fluoridated water is registered or excluded from the Act, Mr Roberts wrote in the report to the Port Macquarie Hastings Council of the New South Wales Mid-North Coast. Council is exposed to both criminal and civil penalties. Meanwhile in England, oh yeah, they continue to fluoridate. And do you know where the most fluoridated part of the UK is? Burton-on-Trent. Do you know where the biggest manufacturer of alcohol is? Burton-on-Trent. Wonder what water they use. Oh, fluoridated, of course. Senior politicians in Australia have committed crimes, says top lawyer. The top politicians in this country are guilty of major criminal offences, and in the UK. But they are unlikely ever to be tried for them, says lawyer Julian Burnside. I think it's pretty clear the Australian Prime Minister and immigration ministers are guilty of criminal offences against our own law, says the Melbourne-based QC. The problem is that no one can bring a prosecution for those offences without the approval of the Attorney General. Take a lucky guess what the Attorney General would say. The offences he has in mind involve the treatment of refugees and asylum seekers, deliberate and unnecessary cruelty that amounts, he argues in the documentary Border Politics, to torture. Since 2002, Australia has been a signature member of the International Criminal Court, and as a result, he explains, there is a serious offence in Australian law that mirror the offences over which the ICC has jurisdiction. It was compulsory for Australia to introduce those laws, and some were well overdue. Until then, and it goes on, the rest I can't see. So, as usual, links in description if you want to read the rest. Whistleblower reveals that a UN-planned invasion by refugees into the US is already underway. A Missouri woman is interviewed by radio show host Josh Tolley and tells how she became involved in her state's refugee immigration program and how the program is far more extensive and advanced than most people realise. She described how the UN, under the heading of Agenda 2030, depopulation, is planning immigration to the US similar to what is happening in Europe, because they're all working to the same agenda. European governments, totally corrupt. America, totally corrupt. The rest of the world, Australia, New Zealand, totally corrupt. The goal is to create chaos and lay the foundations for breaking the US into smaller political units with equal UN representation and the end of America as a sovereign nation. Just like what's going on in Europe at the moment and the UK. They're all working to the same agenda, and it's to destroy our sovereignty, to make it so that the migrants will vote for whatever makes them better off while we lose power. That's the plan. It needs to stop. We need to lock up these corrupt bastard MPs in our country, in America, in Europe, in Australia, all over the planet. They need to be imprisoned immediately. Speaking of the United Nations, the United Nations admits chemtrails are real. The following video is an admission by Rosalind Peterson, President of the Agriculture Defence Coalition, who addresses the UN on the truth behind chemtrails, geoengineering and weather manipulation or modification. The acknowledgement by the UN that our skies are being polluted with aluminium, barium, lead, arsenic, chromium, cadmium, selenium and silver should give weight to the claims that chemtrails cause a whole host of health problems in the general population, including neurological effects, heart damage, eyesight issues, reproduction failures, immune system damage, gastrointestinal disorders, damaged kidneys, damaged liver, hormonal problems and more. HumansAreFree.com reports. The truth is, government is spraying deadly chemtrails in hope of population reduction. Depopulation, like I said all along. Furthermore, they have been known to use chemtrails as biological testing agents on the populace while claiming they are more than mere vapour. It's because it's in italics, it's difficult to see. Well, now we have 100% undeniable evidence that chemtrails exist. The video below is of Rosalind Peterson, the President of the Agriculture Defence Coalition. In it, she addresses the United Nations on chemtrails, geoengineering and weather modification, HARP. If you were a sceptic before, I can assure you that you will not be after hearing what the video says. And so the link's in the description for that if you want to watch the video. Benefits underpayment soar to $2 billion as mistakes by DWP officials increase. Now these aren't mistakes, these are deliberately doing this, another part of the depopulation plan. But because we're becoming aware, we can stop it. Underpayments were highest for benefit claims by disabled people. Get rid of the sick and poor first, and then they'll move on to the rest. Billions in benefits were not paid out to legitimate claimants last year amid an increase in mistakes by officials, government figures show. Official figures show the Department of Work and Pensions, or the Department for Depopulation, underpaid people claiming benefits by $2 billion in 2018-19, an increase of 17% compared to the previous year. And do they get punished for it? No, no, no. Do they get have to pay it back? No, no, no. They just carry on. The biggest cause of underpayments was described as departmental errors. They need to lose their jobs over it. if that's the truth, which of course it won't be. They'll be following guidelines. With the value of the estimated to be at least 500 million, also an increase from previous years. According to the Department of latest accounts, the DWP said underpayments are a small fraction of overall benefit spending at just 1.1% of total payment in 2018-19. The overall rate of fraud and error has not increased since 2010, the department said, but this is unlikely to lessen fears about the impact of those who missed out on legitimate benefit payments, including for universal credit. In a statement, the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Meg Hiller, MP, said, "We have long been warning that universal credit will be challenging to administer because many variables in life. A change of job, hours worked, childcare or housing costs can all have an impact on how you're owed. The fact that the error rate is so high underlines those concerns. The government needs to recognise the impact on people and reduce the error rate." Of course, it's all part of the plan. Get people to kill themselves because they've got no money, they can't afford to live. The impact on error can be devastating to individual families on low incomes. Disabled claimants and those unable to work were among those who had lost out on financial support they would otherwise have been entitled to. In fact, the figures show underpayments were highest for the disabled benefit personnel, independent payments, PIP, at 3.8% in budget. Emma Williams, who lives with multiple sclerosis and receives PIP, was given a back payment worth several £100s after a delay assessing her change of circumstances last year. Williams, 52, was moved onto PIP from the previous disability living allowance in 2016. In the mass move, an assessment rule that she no longer qualified for an enhanced rate of benefits, a decision she challenged unsuccessfully on several occasions because, remember, they have an 80% decline. No. What do you mean you're dead? You're fit for work. Don't talk silly. Williams from Ashford, Kent, said that once she became too unwell to work last year, links in description. Britain's population rises by 400,000 in a year, fueled by migration. The UK's population rose by 400,000 last year, with the increase largely due to immigration. The surge is the equivalent of adding a city the size of Coventry to the country. The total population was up 0.6% from the year before, is to about 66.4 million in June 2018. Official for national statistics figures show net migration, the number arriving in the country minus those leaving, was 275,000, up 45,000 from 2017, and 6,000 higher than the average last 5 years. So the plan seems to be working, unless we stop it. Lawsuit set to end water fluoridation in the US. A federal court has denied an attempt by the Environment Protection Agency to dismiss a lawsuit that is set to end fluoridation in the US for good. The massive victory from anti-water fluoridation groups saw the judge in the Northern District of California deny the Environmental Protection Agency any attempt to limit the information that was available to the court while the decision was being made to ban water fluoridation or not. Food and Water Watch Inc. Field and History lawsuit, along with coalition between health organisations, fight against water fluoridation. Under Section 21 of the Toxic Substance Control Act, US citizens are allowed to petition the EPA to regulate or ban certain chemicals. When the EPA rejected the citizen petition calling for them to ban water fluoridation, Food and Water Watch promptly filed the lawsuit. As the lawsuit continued, the EPA translated the language of the law to imply that judge must limit reviewing the information the EPA supplied when it chose to decline the petition on February 17, 2017. Jeremy Hunt faces legal action over attempts to Americanise the NHS. Senior health professionals or campaigners have now come together to take legal action and demand a judicial review. A legal action is being taken against Jeremy Hunt and the Department of Health over the imposed proposals to restructure the NHS, The Independent can reveal. Plans have been tabled to convert the NHS into a public-private enterprise, which critics say is based on the US private health insurance-based system. Senior health professionals and campaigners have now come together to take legal action and demand a judicial review to ensure Parliament scrutiny and on the proposals. He should be in jail. He is an absolute, utter criminal, and his name begins with a C. Egregious sectioning and kidnap attempts of equity lawyer Edward Ellis as the completing mass corruption remedy process exposes perverse crimes and corruption in UK courts, police departments and hospitals. This was posted 28th of June 2019. In a series of extraordinary incidents last week, as he strove to complete a final document detailing the corruption proof derived over 20 years from cases of internal property theft and home theft, to conclude murder, operation and human organ theft in the NHS hospitals, all protected by corrupt police protections according to people in positions of power, including top judges, hospital doctors and prime ministers, and exposing the unmistakable crime syndicate network in the UK courts, police departments and hospitals. Equity lawyer Edward Ellis became the target of sudden panicked attempts to at medical kidnap and sectioning. While medical health fraud is now, shockingly enough, routinely being conducted against whistleblowers and activists by corrupt or corralled mental health professionals working with governments both in the UK and it seems worldwide, it must see anew each time for that what it really is: an extreme abuse of power, a show of force, purposive intimidation and attempt to silence important work, an illegal grab at one's rights to attorney, mental and physical, and as resolute activist Neil Berry notes, outright state terrorism. The work that equity lawyer Edward Ellis has been doing, and philosopher publishing notice at the various channels online lately, including Andy Devine's channel and Ramaladi Reports, as well as by email. We've all got to get behind this, because this is gross criminal activity by the government, the police, the hospitals, the doctors. It goes across the board. These are absolute corrupt bastards, every single one of them. 5G network uses same EMF waves as Pentagon crowd control system. A global rollout of 5G is well underway, as we soon may see new small cell towers near all schools, on every residential street, dispersed throughout the natural environment and pretty much everywhere. But the safety of this technology is in serious question, and there is a raging battle to stop the taxpayer-funded implementation of 5G. The new cell network uses high-band radio frequency millimeter waves to deliver high bandwidth data to any device within its site. And is it, if you needed any more evidence, Vera Baird investigated after awarding £500,000, £500,000 of taxpayers' cash to her own charity. They're that brazen nowadays. They think they can just get away with anything because they think they've got the New World Order. The former Red Car MP allocated money to victims first Northumbria. The Northumbrian Police Commission is the director of the organisation. Former Red Cap MP Vera Baird is being investigated after awarding more than £500,000 of taxpayers' money to a charity of which she is a director. The Northumbria Police and Crime Commissioner, a former Social Solicitor General, allocated the money to Victims for Northumbria. Company's House records show the Force's Chief Constable, Sue Sim, under investigation by Miss Baird over bullying claims, is also VFN director. A Minister for Justice, Soar, said officials would be making inquiries to ascertain whether conflict of interest rules had been broken. Of course they've bloody been broken! Miss Baird was able to hand out cash after the government changed the rules to allow PCCs to commission service for victims of crime. Keith Vaz, chairman of the House and paedophile, gay paedophile, you know, the one that got caught, but yeah, this House of Commons Home Affairs Committee said Northumbrian Police appears to have developed its own soap opera. It is totally inappropriate for a PCC to set up an organisation in which they have an interest of whatever kind using public money, he added. The fact that the co-op director is also Chief Constable of Northumbria is wrong, and they should cease their activities immediately. They should both be in jail. The Home Secretary should never have given these powers. The Labour Party is committing to abolishing PCCs. US government accidentally releases electromagnetic mind control documents in FOI request. When researchers Curtis Waltman of the website Muckrock received files resulting from his Freedom of Information Act request on Antifa and white supremacist groups from the Washington State Fusion Center, he got a little more than he had bargained for, an unrelated zip file entitled EM Effects on Human Body. Within the file, there were 3 diagrams that present information on electromagnetic weapons targeting of the human body and brain. The first diagram, more specifically entitled Psychoelectric Weapon Effects, seems to detail the potential use of such weapons, focusing on both mind control and a physical discomfort. Get in the links and get that and read the rest of that, because that will explain why 5G is being pushed out as quick as they can. MPs suggest the NHS should not fund life-extending drugs for the elderly. Well, how about this? How about every MP, once he gets to 40 or over, is euthanised? I think that'd sort a lot of the problems, don't you? The MP told radio listeners he isn't sure if the enormous expense to keep older people alive is justifiable. The Conservative MP questioned if life-extending drugs for the elderly are justifiable. David Davis, well, he's of the age where he should be euthanised. The Conservative member of Paedophiles for Monmouth and Brexiteer suggested that the NHS should not provide life-extending drugs for elderly patients who are already nearing the end of their lives. He told radio listeners he isn't sure if the enormous expense to keep older people alive is justifiable after a poll revealed that 82% of voters should support a 1p ring fence rise in NHS national insurance to ensure the NHS is properly funded. Bullshit! They've got enough money, it's just it's run by a corrupt load of wankers. In August 2017, Davis suggested victims of crime should not be provided with interpreters so that police could save money, and in response to the 2015 refugee crisis, Davis claimed that majority of people attempted to enter the UK were not refugees fleeing war, but were instead migrants, mostly young men, mostly with mobile phones chasing their luck. Can we justify the expense? Mr. Davis told talk radio host Julia Hartley Brewer, there are drugs out there that will keep people alive for a few months longer, maybe being delivered to at the end of what might have been a long and productive life at enormous expense. And I think we need to honest debate about the cost of some of these drugs, because I'd like to see people in their younger years, people, of course, getting access to this, but I'm not sure how justifiable it is. And this is difficult to say when somebody is in their 80s and they're at the end of what's been a long and happy life. Happy under government, no chance. To try and keep somebody alive for an extra couple of months at the cost that could run into hundreds of thousands of pounds is something we need to be talking about. This is about money over life. Well, you know. How about we get rid of the MPs and we'll be able to afford everything? And get rid of the money system as well, because it's totally corrupt. The Observer. MPs to Corbyn. Get a grip or lose election. Glastonbury 2019. Sun, sweat and stormy and new for Kylie. Unfortunately, this lot are all being cooked by 5G. And they don't even know, although there has been many reports of nosebleeds and all that sort of thing, because they're being irradiated. The Fail. Labour leader fury at Civil Service League alleging he is frail and losing his memory. Corbyn rage at stroke claims. We're tired on 2000 to find the perfect one for you. People. Two Pride of Royal Lionesses and Parasites again. Lags get virtual reality holidays. Prison trial gives inmates machine to tackle violence. Waste of paper star. U-Mugs, exclusive cash row. Beeb spends 3 million on branded cups, mouse mats, anoraks and umbrellas. And the elderly are going to have to pay. This is the sort of corruption that goes on in the BBC. Channel 4 slammed for Farage murder TV show. Mirror, Parasites again. Military spending scandal. Fury as defence chiefs blow 800,000 a night on top hotels. Veteran charities hit out at 205 million travel bill for top brass, plus bonus for mod civil servant rocket to 16 million a year. We're all in it together, you know, except, of course, we're not. Express, Parasites again, hottest day water crisis. Oh, piss off, what? Farage plans to fight new PM. Party leader ready for election with promise of 200 billion Brexit windfall. Parasite, Queen warning for MPs turn talk into action. Yeah. Telegraph, Boris to set up 100-day Brexit war cabinet. Parasites again. Britain ready for blast off as it joins space tourism race. Give Gaddafi's millions to victims of IRA. Sunday Times. Tory rivals in the hard Brexit bidding war. Boris swore and threatened me. MI5 investigates Tory MPs Russian lobbying. It's all a waste of space. Now, you sick of the missus asking you to put the kettle on? Here's how she will never ask you to do it again. All women want is sex these days. We men just want to cuddle and talk about our feelings. I'm good to those who are good to me. The rest can kiss my ass. When you enter an Adidas shop and you see your salary written on a pair of shoes. Taking a dog named Shark to the beach is a bad idea.